a playlist original.
Santa's coming to town.
Santa! Oh my God!
This is Christmas, the season of perpetual hope.
We are Santa's elves, filling Santa's shelves.
Tinsel, not just for decoration.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
If you look for it, I've got a sneaky feeling you'll find that love actually is all around.
This is a full-blown 4-alarm holiday emergency here. We're gonna press on, and we're gonna have the happiest Christmas since Bing Crosby tap danced with Danny Kaye. And when Santa squeezes his fat white down that chimney tonight, he's gonna find the jolliest bunch of holes this side of the nut house. Come on!
And I think you're beautiful, and I feel really warm when I am around you, and my tongue swells up. So, do you want to go eat food?
I feel it in my fingers. I feel it in my toes.
Sometimes the most real things in the world are the things we can't see.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas.
It's Christmas Eve. It's the one night of the year when we all act a little nicer. We smile a little easier. We share a little more.
I want an official red undercover next to 200 your wings about arrive.
You're a 1,200-year-old elf?
You look pretty good for your age.
Thanks, but I'm seeing someone in wrapping.
Why are you smiling like that?
I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite.
I can't seem to find my toothbrush, so I'll pick one up when I go out today. Other than that, I'm in good shape. Okay, Dad. Let's do it. Let's go get this kicked out of us by now.
Yes!
Oh, the silent majesty of a winter's morn, the clean, cool chill of the holiday air, an asshole in his bathrobe, emptying a chemical toilet into my sewer.
was full.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
Say goodnight, Kevin.
Good night, Kevin.
It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags.
Maybe Christmas,
he thought,
doesn't come from a star. Maybe Christmas, perhaps.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. And a Happy New Year.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster with your host, Gis and Jackson, celebrating Merry Bingemas once again. What's up, buddy?
Oh, I'm very excited to talk about this one. I suppose to kick it off, a thank you was in order for letting us talk about such an unconventional Christmas movie. I'm sure there's plenty of people here that are thinking, what the hell? Gremlins isn't a Christmas movie, but maybe I'm wrong. I view it that way. It takes place on Christmas, and for the last 3 years, it's been a tradition of mine. I only saw it for the first time 3 years ago, and then the next couple of years went by, and I threw it in again, and then thought, what better chance to talk about it than on Merry Bingemas. So thank you for allowing us to discuss this movie today. It's no Love Actually, but it takes place on Christmas. It meets the requirements.
Yeah, Love Actually doesn't have any gremlins, no Mogwai, no monsters,
so
monsters wreaking havoc.
No, it is like, it's kind of like Poltergeist in the sense where it's like a Spielberg movie, but not. And you feel his fingerprints all over this movie. And I think for the betterment of this movie, it's like his golden age time where I think he was just involved in too many other things at the time. But
80s,
but lent his, executive producing, know-how to this movie, and the movie really pays off for it. It's such a fun family movie in this weird time where you push the boundary for like PG-13. It's from the year the first PG-13 movie ever came out. So there's still a gray area there.
This was part of the reason Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and this movie were a big reason why the PG-13 rating came about, because I guess parents were taking their kids to see. Now this movie made a lot of money. There's stories about like walkouts and stuff because the parents were like,
walkouts. What?
This
Maybe with kids. Okay, sure.
Yeah, because parents were like, this is not a children's movie. But but the movie made $212.9 million worldwide, and 148 of that came domestically from its initial run. Then they re-released it a year later. That pushed it up to like 153 domestic. So even if there was some kind of outcry, it didn't really hurt the box office at all. I guess people still enjoyed it. But yeah, I found that interesting to learn that this was this movie, and Steven Spielberg is associated with both this movie and Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom were a big rating for having the PG-13 rating created. I saw this movie super young,
right?
That's why I thought it was a horror film I mean, I guess it still is, but I thought it was like a scary movie when I was a kid,
right?
I definitely
did the kids that way, I think.
Yeah, like, I feel like if Five Nights at Freddy's came out in '84, that would be like this would be kind of like similar in terms of like a gateway horror movie for kids.
And it's been described that way, and I think that's a great way to pitch this movie. It's like if you're a young kid looking to, broaden your horizons and sort of find a gateway into like more mainstream horror movies, this is a great place to start.
Yeah, but Christmas is all around in the movie. It takes place during Christmas. And you kind of feel the vibe the entire movie. It's not just now. Is it integral to the plot? I mean, I guess it involves the Mogwai thing happened as a gift for Christmas, so I guess there's that.
I think it happens, like the plot can happen, not necessarily. I don't think like where we just discussed this in the Holdovers, that is way more central to the plot. I think this could happen any real time. It just happens to take place at Christmas.
Yeah.
But for what it is, I love that it's set there. You get some Christmas anecdotes, a lot of Christmas imagery that I think pay off. But
you get songs. There's
that's right.
For those that don't know, Gremlins was released in 1984, the year I was born. A lot of good movies came out the year I was born.
Yeah.
Comedy horror film directed by Joe Dante, written by Chris Columbus. I didn't know that.
Right. That's like the best part about this movie.
I don't think I've ever paid attention that he wrote it, and I was like, oh. And Chris Columbus is the king. I mean, almost king of movie Christmas. He did Home Alone.
Exactly.
We're talking directed Home Alone.
Directed the first two Harry Potter movies. He wrote the Goonies as well, I believe. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he is. He had a good run for a really long time. Written by Chris Columbus and starring Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, Hoyt Axton, Polly Holliday, and Frances Lee McCain, with Howie Mandel providing the voice of Gizmo. I still find that hilarious.
I love Gizmo as a character. He's so friggin' cute.
Yeah, adorable.
Yeah.
Gizmo being the main Mogwai character. It draws on legends of folklore, mischievous creatures that cause malfunctions, gremlins in the British Royal Air Force going back to World War II. The story follows a young man who receives a strange creature as a pet, which then spawns other creatures who transform into small, destructive, mischievous monsters that all wreak havoc on a whole town on Christmas Eve.
What is it? It's your new pet. Number one, you got to keep him out of bright light. Number two, keep him away from water. It's incredible. And probably the most important thing, don't ever feed him after midnight.
Billy, what are these things?
Gremlins.
How come a cute little guy like this can turn into 1,000 ugly monsters? That was Mrs. Deagle.
I'll bet every kid in America would like to have one. They might even replace the dog as the family pet.
The film was the center of a very large merchandising campaign and got a lot of credit and criticism for its balancing of Black comedy against the Christmas time setting. Steven Spielberg was the film's executive producer, with the film being produced by Michael Fennell. Released on June 8th, 1984, nowhere near
weird.
Christmas.
Yeah.
In fact, guys, by the time it ended its box office run in 1984, its final day in theaters was November 29th. So it closed up shop before the holiday season
So
that year,
strange.
1984.
There must have been a reason. Must have been a stacked. I don't know why that
It's
would be
so
the case.
weird.
Yeah.
It was released to critical and commercial success. However, like we said, it was heavily criticized by some for its more violent sequences, and that helped spawn the PG-13 rating. It also spawned a sequel called Gremlins 2: The New Batch. While not as financially successful, it's still fun in its own right. It's way more comedic though.
Right. I've never seen that one. That's been on my list for a while, given how much I love this movie. And I've always wondered if it was like really worthwhile if you've enjoyed the first one. What do you think? You've seen?
It's way different. I mean, like this one, like of course there's comedic stuff in this, but it leans in heavy on the satire and comedy rather than any more than anything else. It definitely didn't do as well in theaters, but it became like a cult film later. Like a lot of people do like the second one a lot now, but at the time it was deemed a disappointment. And by the way, all this done on an $11 million budget, which kind of was expensive for them at the time. They were they felt that they went over budget.
If they were to see movie budgets this time, this day and age. Whew.
But yeah, I saw it as a kid, very young, and it's been in my life ever since then. I've seen it a handful of times. It is annual Christmas viewing for me as well.
Oh, okay, nice.
It's weird to call it an unconventional Christmas movie. I mean, a lot of it is. I mean, it does take place through Christmas. A lot of it is around this event that happens on Christmas Eve. There's, like you said, a ton of Christmas imagery. There's music. But I guess, balancing the whole horror comedy aspect of it, it's not wholesome fun.
Right.
By any means. But I think it's up there. I mean, I was trying to think of like if I had a list of unconventional Christmas movies where this would rank, and it'd be pretty high up there, I think.
Agreed. Myself as well.
And watching it today, again, last night, I actually watched that last night rather. I was like, there not a lot going on other than you get the Mogwai, and then shit happens. They terrorize the town, and then that's it.
Yeah,
there's no like
pretty self-contained story.
There's no like deeper like kind of like where do they come from? Why are they? I mean, they don't really even explain like why they can even do the things that they do once they transform. Like they're able to hum along the songs that they somehow know, and they're also able to.
Why are they speaking English?
They can speak English. They drink. They smoke.
They can operate firearms. They can drive.
They can operate tractors. And there's no explanation as to why they can do any of these things.
Exactly, and you don't need one. It's like just from a simpler storytelling time in Hollywood, where like you don't need to overanalyze all these details. Where I feel like people do in modern filmmaking, the movie works so good by not thinking about all these things because it's silly, it's goofy, it's about a bunch of little creatures that are running around causing havoc. And I think it works so well like that. Obviously it's ridiculous in premise, but so much fun. I find this movie so hard, like just has such a charisma and like a humor to it that I can't help, even though like I plop it in, I'm like, is this really as good as I give it praise for? And every time I'm done watching, I'm like, I find myself like laughing like giddily multiple times while watching it, and I feel it always earns that praise that I give it when I'm done watching it.
Yeah, it really does.
It's so much fun.
And it's one of those movies that gets better every time I watch it.
Yeah, agreed. There's more to pick up on every time.
It holds up really well. I think the two leads, I guess we can Zach Galligan and Phoebe Cates are both good. They both serve the roles that are necessary. Like the Gremlins are the stars. Gizmo is the star.
Yes,
but you got to have human characters in it too, and they serve the purpose of being likable enough that one, you're rooting for whatever budding romance they like. I'm glad there's not a huge focus on like, are they going to are they going to become a couple, like that kind of thing?
Right, I agree.
There's like
completely.
A flirtatious chemistry between them, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's more about like Billy stepping up and protecting Gizmo at all costs, and then in turn protecting the town from being like terrorized by these little creatures, which is like you said, it's very simple. It reminds me of like you made a good point. The 80s was like this, where like I always think about Predator, like that first one. There's no explanation as to why that thing just crash lands in the jungle, and
Right.
there's no rhyme or reason to it. He just is out to kill them, and that's all you need to know.
Exactly.
And the more they over-explain it, the more it convoluted it gets in like the sequels and all that.
Right.
But
It's
but
better
that
the less you know,
self-contained
the better.
story of like, yeah, I don't need to know anything more than that.
Right.
But we are given rules when Billy's inventor, Father Randall, gets the Mogwai from an owner named Mr. Wing. The rules are: do not expose the Mogwai to light, especially sunlight, which will kill it. Do not let it come in contact with water, and above all, never feed it after midnight.
Such
Very
an 80s
simple
thing.
yeah.
Trope. Yeah.
Very simple rules to follow. I
one
always
would
find
think.
it. I find it hilarious that when the dad brings the Mogwai home, and he knows these rules, and then the mom is like goes to take a Polaroid picture of Gizmo, and it freaks out because of the light. And then the dad's like, "Oh yeah, like
By the way,
I'm supposed to tell you." I'm like, "Why would you lead with like these very important rules that you
Right.
probably should let them know?" Yeah, I thought that. I was watching it today. I was like, "Why didn't you like tell them that as soon as you like?" Took
Even
this
that
thing
being
out?
said, I think that's pretty consistent with his like goofy nature and that his absent-minded sort of like nature to him. Like his character is very clumsy, ditzy. You know, he's an inventor, so you think that, you know, he's a semi-smart guy, can put together these elaborate devices that do all these sorts of weird things, as we see a couple times through the movie. Yet he's just such this burly, forgetful, absent-minded sort of guy, and I feel like that him neglecting to mention that right off the bat is so in tune with his character.
And this movie also exists in a universe where that would be a normal pet to give out as a gift.
Yeah.
There's no questioning about what it is. It's not like it's a dog. It's not a cat. So like,
Right.
but like I do kind of love that there's no like, oh, what the hell did you bring home? It's just very like,
It's just like, oh, I've never seen one of these before.
Yeah. And maybe it's because Gizmo is just so darn cute that you don't care what it is. But I think it's funny that the movie doesn't even try to be like, oh, is it kind of weird that he brought this like weird thing home?
Exactly. No need to, you know, expand the runtime with all this needless explanation. Let's just get down to it. Exactly.
Backstory.
I wanted to get to it and just give some praise to, just thinking for some reason Chucky popped into my mind when we were covering Child's Play, and I mentioned that Chucky doll was on my oh goodness, what is it? My Mount Rushmore of animatronics. And I gotta say, Gizmo and the Gremlins are also up there. They are so believable, and the way they're able to emote and the way that they are able to move and the things that they can do in this movie as little animatronic dolls is, I'm so impressed every time I'm done watching this movie at what the crew was able to do with these animatronics. It's just unbelievable how real and, well, I mean, you can tell you're looking at a machine, but it's just impressive what they're able to convey and do. And especially when you have like 30 to 40 of them at one time, like in the bar scene and in the movie theater, there's so many of them all doing, they all have such an individual quality to them. It's just, it's movie magic. And that's what I love about this movie.
I just read that there was an earlier attempt to use monkeys to interpret the Gremlins.
Yes,
that was abandoned because of test monkey panic, which was when made to wear a gremlin head. So puppets and marionettes were used instead. So the actors worked alongside them in most scenes. Nevertheless, after the actors finished their work for good, a great deal of effort was spent finishing the effects. They said numerous small rubber puppets, some of which were mechanical, were used to portray Gizmo and the Gremlins, and they were designed by Chris Wallace. There was more than one Gizmo puppet, and occasionally Galligan, when carrying one, would sit him down off camera, and when Gizmo appeared again sitting on a surface, it was actually a different puppet wired to the surface. And these puppets had many limitations. The Gizmo puppets were particularly frustrating because they were smaller and thus broke down more. And the larger micros were easier to function as far as for the special effects team. But Joe Dante insisted on keeping their size small to enhance the cuteness of the creatures. And consequently, to satisfy the crew, a scene was included in which the Gremlins hang Gizmo on a wall and throw darts at him. That was included on a list that the crew created, known to them as the horrible things to do to Gizmo list.
Which is a very hilarious scene. Like, you see the panic in his eyes, and I'm grateful no darts actually hit him, but it's still a hilarious scene. On the side note, do you remember the Furby doll that was popular? Is that modeled after Gizmo at all?
It feels like it is. it really feels like it is.
I'm just wondering if if it's deliberate or if it's acknowledged in any way how similar those things are to Gizmo from this movie.
I mean, every time I remember when they first became big, that was the first thing I thought is that it looks like
Gizmo. Yeah,
a variation of Gizmo.
There has to be a connection there. But anyway, besides the point.
But Gizmo's definitely cuter than the Furby.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Gizmo. I literally like care for that character. Like, I love Gizmo so much.
Yeah, I do too. And then Corey Feldman appears in this movie. Yes. He was in every 80s movie during this period.
I think this is the first time I actually realized it was Corey Feldman. I remember being like, what the hell?
Yeah, I know. Very small part. But he is the reason they multiply initially because he spills water on Gizmo by mistake. And actually, I think I realized I don't like body transformation anything, whether it's human or in puppet form.
Oh, okay.
Because watching those things like bubble on his back and then like pop, and he looks like he gets so much pain too.
Yeah, it does look painful.
Yeah, and then they like pop out, and then like you watch. Yeah, it's gross.
It is gross. You feel bad for Gizmo. I find it funny how there's no sense of connection like to Gizmo and the other Gremlins, which are essentially his offspring. They come from his back. Yet he's just like, I don't know. They're their own set of Mogwai / Gremlins, and I'm just Gizmo over here on the main one. And
well, that is the one thing they don't. I guess we don't need the explanation, but they don't really explain that why Gizmo is so like docile and nice. And then when they spawn from him, they're already mischievous as soon as they like come out. Like they that one tries to bite Corey Feldman. I think that was the striped one that tries to bite him.
Yes, he's hilarious.
And they already are wanting to cause a ruckus. Mm-hmm. They don't like Gizmo right away.
No,
they immediately don't like Gizmo. If there was one explanation, I guess I would want to know like why they come out different compared to him and why Gizmo is so nice. I guess they don't. Really
I wonder if there's a broader allegory there. If anybody has ever bothered to, if there's fan fiction
dig into it.
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure.
I mean, dude, you can write anything for your website, so it's like, so I'm sure someone's probably been like,
I'm sure there has
deeper
been
reasons. That's why Gizmo's nice, and but that whole scene, and he's like wiggling around his stomach, and like it just looks so painful, like for the little guy.
Yeah.
Then of course it gets even worse though, because they eventually get food. They
some tasty chicken.
Another rule that tasty chicken.
Yeah.
And then they turn into completely disgusting looking creatures, which I'm guessing. So I read that in the marketing for the movie, they really hid the Gremlins part of it well in like the initial trailers and stuff. So I'm guessing that's why parents were a little perturbed when they went to go see the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know how you hide that in the marketing, but they said they did their best to focus the marketing on Gizmo and this like little cute little thing.
That would draw in parents and kids for sure.
And then like, the bait and switch is like, no, this is what they turn into. And they look like they come out of these like little disgusting little like pods of like green ooze.
Looks like right off the set of Alien, eh? Like
Alien, yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was like, it looks just like that. I thought that was I thought that was interesting that they were able to hide that. It's smart that they did, because I mean I wonder if you marketed it straight up for what it was, if it would have been as successful. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, because it seems like if you did market it for what it is, you would need to try to market it to like an older crowd rather than kids. And I feel like they wanted to market this to children in some way, to get that family audience in. And God, it just reminds me of like Batman Returns, because they did that with Batman Returns, and that ended up being like a much darker movie. It had like Happy Meal tie-ins, and parents thought they were sending their kids to like a kids movie in 1992, and there's so much like sexual innuendo between Batman and Catwoman. Penguin's disgusting, like super disgusting. And that's part of the reason why they were like, Tim Burton, like, we don't want you to do a third one, because
right.
They famously let him. They were like, "Hey, we'll let you do whatever you want. Like, this will be a Tim Burton movie more than a Batman movie," and that's exactly what he did.
What did he do next? Edward Scissorhands?
No, so he did Batman in 89, and then Edward Scissorhands came out in 90, and then he did Batman Returns in 1992. And they were like, yeah, you can't. When it came time for Batman Forever, they were like,
what's the one they gave him after Batman Returns?
No, so they gave him, so he had Batman in 89, and then they were like, hey, you could do Batman Returns if you want to do, he didn't want to do a sequel at all. And they were like, yeah, they went, and then they were like, okay, if I do it, then I want like creative control. And that was, so he basically made a Tim Burton movie rather than a Batman movie. And it's dark, it's weird, and it's also, it takes place on Christmas.
Fair enough. Yeah. Interesting.
What do you think about so I guess the movie was supposed to be darker in a lot of different places. Like the mom was supposed to die. Like the Gremlins were supposed to cut her head off and throw it down the stairs.
Yeah. And the dog too was supposed to get it. I think the dog was supposed to die. I can deal without that.
Yeah, that would have been awful. There's a scene where they're supposed to be eating customers instead of burgers.
Yep.
Do you think, would you have want? Well, I am telling you right now, the dog dying would have been awful. Yeah. But like, would you have liked a darker, that dark version of the story?
So, I love this movie for what we got out of it. I think it works great as like I don't know what the official rating is. I know it's not PG. Is it PG? But it's like,
I think it's PG.
Right. For whatever it is, I know it should have been PG-13, but it didn't exist at that time. I think for the tone and what we do get out of it works brilliantly, and it wouldn't be the movie that we know and love today without it. That being said, you know me, I think a more R-rated Gremlins movie would have been awesome, especially if it was like, if they were able to throw in some more comedy to supplement the gore and whatever was planned. It would inevitably, though, be such a different movie if you have, like, you know, the mother getting decapitated and the dog dying, and they're essentially more evil, whereas in the movie that we get, they're more like, yeah, they're bad, but they're not necessarily evil, I'd say, with the exception of Stripe being more like actually evil. The other ones are just mischievous and out to do harm, and, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it works as it is. I think it would have been awesome to have seen an R-rated Gremlins as well. I would even support that being made now if you could stick to the style that it's made of from the 80s.
Yeah.
I'd say avoid CGI. It works better as puppets and animatronics.
Yeah, for sure.
But I guess I have no gripes with what the product was. I don't necessarily need more out of it. I think for an 80s PG movie, there's plenty of dark.
It goes pretty far.
It does. And you know me, I love that stuff.
Yeah, and that's only because there was no PG-13 rating at the time. So it does, when you're thinking about what would be PG today,
this would be nothing like this.
It certainly goes the limit, I think, and walks a fine line.
Yeah, think of the blender and the microwave gremlin kill. It's like those are violent.
They also know how to cut the phone line. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about how smart they are. like when he's calling his mom to like warn them about them, and like I was like, again, you don't really question like how do they know how to do that? Like how do they know where it is?
So hilarious. It's so dumb. I love it.
So there are two fan theories about why Gizmo is nice and the other ones are mean.
What do we got?
This one is this one is like more direct. It says maybe because Gizmo was raised by a wise man, the others were raised by a foolish child named Billy, parenting for the win. This other one makes more sense. Not a fan theory, actual backstory. The Mogwai were designed by an alien scientist to create peace on their planets. The Gremlin mutation was the flaw that led to the project being canned. Gizmo was good because he was made to be good. The rest were the mutations, the apparent flaw in the species. And they actually have a link to Gremlins novelization that I guess supports that theory.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Much more backstory than I realized there was to this lore.
I had no idea. But that really interesting to learn though, because I was always wondering like why did they come out vicious like in Gizmo was good.
Poor Mr. Hansen that they take out there too. He's just trying to. There's such a unintentional Snickers advertisement when he's like trying to get he has one of the Mogwai to study at the school, and it eventually, you know, metamorphosizes and changes into a gremlin, and he's trying to feed it a Snickers bar, and I'm like, their caption would be so good here, like, you're not you when you're hungry. And I just find it's such a hilarious unintentional Snickers advertisement. I love that scene, but I love
so good. It's just all ridiculous.
Yeah, quite a few. Harkening back to what I'd mentioned about, so Steven Spielberg executive produces this movie. Kathleen Kennedy too. You'll see her name there in the opening credits.
Before she destroyed Star Wars.
Yes, she was. Seems that she was everywhere Steven Spielberg went back in like the 70s and 80s. But there are so many, like I said, like Steven Spielberg's fingerprints are all over this movie. There's a few like direct references to his material. I think the earliest one that I noticed is like when you get some shots of the town in the beginning. I can't remember what the billboard is showing or saying, but you have that like pure Indiana Jones style figure with the hat, and even the font on the billboard it's definitely Indiana Jones, so, reminiscent of. Somewhere in the movie too is an actual ET doll, which I have not noticed myself.
Yeah, I was trying to look for it.
I was trying to look
for it. I couldn't find it. Yeah.
But you do get the line of dialogue. You do get a gremlin saying "phone home," which is really cool. Steven Spielberg himself is a cameo in this movie. Have you picked up on where he is? Yeah. It's pretty. If you know what he looks like, it's pretty obvious. But I always look for it. It's pretty cool. He's just cycling around on a little tricycle, and at a scene when Randall is at the whatever it is, like the Inventors Emporium thing on Christmas Eve of all times,
of all days.
But cool to see Steven Spielberg actually being there as an executive producer. Clearly, he was involved in the movie, which you really can tell. But I've always appreciated this movie for that because it feels like his movie.
He has like its aesthetic. I mean, I guess like you said with Poltergeist, except I think with this one, there's no like who stepped in and did what. I think Joe Dante, he took the lead on a lot of things. I guess there is one moment that they wanted cut, and that's the Phoebe Cates story about I guess why she hates Christmas.
Right.
And which is a weird, I mean, I don't know how do you feel about that?
I think it lends to the darker tone in the movie. I think I'm all for all the scenes in this movie that kind of balance the comedy with the darker stuff. And so I think that scene fits. And I know where you're going with that Steven Spielberg let Joe Dante keep that in there, right? Because he appreciated that it was his movie and his vision.
It's his movie, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I commend Steve for that. But I think it's fine. And there, actually, oddly enough, I must have seen this movie as a kid because I remember that's the only scene from this movie that I remember really? Anecdotally, and until I'd seen it for like the first time again a few years ago. I remember that story about her dad dressed up as Santa coming down the chimney and dying and being missing for days until they light the fire.
His neck. Yeah.
I remember that story stuck with me for years and years. So I'm assuming I must have seen this as a kid and that stuck with me. But up until a few years ago, that would have been the only thing I can tell you that I remembered from Gremlins, other than, of course, Gizmo, because everyone knows Gizmo that's seen this movie. But clearly it's an effective scene.
I guess it is a reference to an actual urban legend.
Sounds like it.
But they say Kate reveals in the speech that her father died on Christmas when he dressed as Santa Claus and broke his neck while climbing down the family's chimney. After the film was completed, studio executives insisted upon its removal because they felt it was too ambiguous as to whether it was supposed to be funny or sad. Dante refused to take the scene out, saying it represented the film as a whole, which had a combination of horrific and comedic elements. And then Spielberg did not like the scene, but did not want to cut it because it, is Dante's film and he should be able to leave it in. I just remember this now reading it. There is a parody of the scene in Gremlins 2. They do make fun of it. And new batch. But so I was like, when I was watching today, because I kind of forgot about it, I was like, yeah, that's so one. I always think it's funny when people take the time when there's all this chaos going around to like have these like really emotional monologues and speeches because it comes out of nowhere,
right?
Kind of. But I guess it works for the movie. I mean, it goes with the tone, I guess, but it does seem like it's like, whoa, like where'd that come from, girl?
Right.
Like completely out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it still works. I'm glad they didn't cut it, I guess.
It's so in character of Steven Spielberg to not want that in the movie because he's so family oriented.
Wholesome.
He goes, wholesome, exactly. And you go, that's a little dark, but I think it earns its place in the movie. I love this little bit of trivia too here, though, that I guess there were some studio notes that were sent to Joe Dante and Steven Spielberg after the first cut of the movie. And there were some complaints about how many gremlins were in the movie, specifically that there were too many. And I love this quote here. It says that Spielberg suggested cutting all the Gremlins out and calling the movie People, which is such a funny retort to that criticism.
Like shady, like small shade.
Of course, there's a bunch of Gremlins in the movie. It's called Gremlins.
You're gonna give me a stupid note. I'm gonna give you a stupid reaction.
Exactly. I love that about Steven Spielberg, and he's got such a great personality.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Actually,
I know.
I just imagine being pissed and just was writing that. Like,
80s Spielberg was awesome.
Yeah, I agree. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And and that is, I mean, no matter what decade, I guess every studio had like, it was like, hey, we need to change this. This is really dumb. Like, this is not going to work. We hear that a lot today.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was like that in the 80s too. Like, it's crazy. And as far as the cast of humans, Zach Galligan was pretty much unknown at the time that he did the movie. Emilio Estevez and Judd Nelson also auditioned for his part, but Galligan won the part because, as they said, when he auditioned with Phoebe Cates, they said he's in love with her already. So that's why they that's why they cast him, and they were worried about casting her because she was known for Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is a little bit more racy than Gremlins.
Right.
But they liked her chemistry with him. And that's how he ultimately got cast too, which I think is pretty cool. I that's like embarrassing. Like, dude loves the girl already. Come
Clearly,
on.
Clearly, he was smitten with her, and I think their chemistry is great. I really like him in this movie, and I haven't seen him in anything else. I don't believe.
I have only seen him in Gremlins and Gremlins 2, the new batch.
Oh, he's in the sequel too. Eh?
They both are. Yeah,
Oh.
Phoebe Cates is in it too.
Great.
They bring them both back. I don't know if he just like retired after that. But no, he did some like TV and stuff.
I was gonna
like
say you'd have
movies.
too much fun filming these movies to give up acting. Like these are really as good as 80s movies get.
Yeah,
in terms of like
he did a lot of television.
Hmm.
A lot of television. But yeah, cool that he was virtual, like pretty much unknown and beat out people like Emilio Estevez and Judd Nelson were big in the 80s. So the fact that they didn't go with them, and
Right?
with,
The following year they were in Breakfast Club, both of them, right?
Yep. Part of the Brat Pack.
Yep.
Infamous group of people that were in John Hughes movies.
Jonathan Banks, I don't know if you'd recognize him from anything. He has a small role as like the deputy that that accompanies the sheriff. He is a huge character in the Breaking Bad universe. So I always like to, it's funny seeing him for the first time in something outside of Breaking Bad was in this. And I was like, and he's so much younger in this movie than his character is in Breaking Bad. So it's funny, but once you get around to seeing that show, you'll be like, it's Mike. But yeah, no, it's cool to see him in this movie too. Jonathan Banks, shout out to him. He's a great actor as well.
What are your thoughts on well, you know what? I always feel so good when that old lady gets her comeuppance because she's such
oh my god, I live for that moment. Mrs. Deagle,
first of all,
the Wicked Witch of the
Mrs.
West.
Deagle, but I'm also like I was dying laughing today when the dog jumps out and like scares her or whatever, and then she has that very over dramatic reaction to it. She's like, "Oh I have a weak heart, like I can't be like shocked like that." And then when she goes to leave again, she has like the one more line drop. She's like, "Oh my heart," like it's just very dramatic.
It is so yes,
so dead on though. But yeah, talk about someone that earns that comeuppance. So
yes, she's made to hate in a very 80s sort of fashion where like her character is very one-dimensional. Every moment she's given on screen is designed to make you want to see her fall victim to a gremlin, and that is exactly what happens. And it's one of the highlights of that movie. I think that is one of the funniest parts of the movie is to see her launch so far out of the house. I heard when they hijack her like stair seat thing, and she flies up at like a roller coaster and launches out the window. I live for that moment in this movie. She sucks, and I love how she goes out. It's great. Like funny too. A little, I guess it's better writing for her character than you'd think that she deserved, but she's I guess shown in that one sequence right before her demise to be a cat lover, and all the different cats that she names in that scene are all named after different sorts of currency, which is funny because you also see her at the bank. Her money is a big part of her character. But I thought that was a funny detail.
But I always like get immense joy
Seeing her,
of all the people they target.
Yeah.
Her being the most.
There's not too many
conservative.
deaths in this movie other than the Gremlins themselves, but she is...
yeah, other than the Gremlins themselves, yeah, for sure. I always marvel at how chaotic that whole bar scene looks,
right,
with them, and because I don't know. I mean, I always appreciate how organized chaos is filmed, and that just looks like it probably took forever to do. I also love that she's still trying to work and serve them.
She's actually serving them like beers and stuff.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
And like she's trying to light the one cigarette, and it keeps like moving away from her, and she's like fuck this. And then she realizes like the whole light thing, and like it's to pull over a camera. And I just love that she basically like is taking them out, like she's shooting them basically.
Right.
I
love how
of course, Stripe realizes what she's doing, is like what? Like he gets like kind of the hell out of there. But,
I love like the different sort of like tropes that the different Gremlins embody, and like certain scenes, like particularly in that bar scene, you got like the whole like poker table Gremlins that are like all dressed as like tough guys, and Stripes like I think somebody wins.
And how do they know how to play poker?
Shoots them. Yeah. It's just so wonderfully dumb. It's hilarious. But like when Stripe shoots one that like wins the poker hand, like that is just top tier for me. I love that.
And then there's that one that's like annoying, like clearly like the jazzy Gremlin, the one that's like into the music or whatever, and he just like hits him over the head.
Yeah.
They all have little fucking personalities, but they don't explain where they come from. I kept doing that today. I was like, how do they know how to play poker? Like, whatever. I guess we don't need to explain it.
No, exactly. It's funnier not knowing
it's fine
how they know anything. It's just hilarious.
Also interesting, since Gizmo was so cute, Gizmo was supposed to transform into Stripe, the Gremlin. But Spielberg overruled that plot element as he felt Gizmo was cute and that audiences would want him to be present throughout the film. So he vetoed that one, which I think is a good idea.
Because
that would have been sad actually to be like, oh man, I think you need one good one to kind of counteract the plethora of awful ones.
And I think it was Spielberg's idea as well to have Gizmo ultimately be the one that undoes Stripe by yanking the curtain down and getting the sunlight on him, which is I think it's cool because he also
doesn't like
spawned
Gizmo
him
at
too.
all. Yeah, doesn't like Gizmo at all. Calls him Gizmo Caca. I think you hear that a few times.
That is funny. Stripe's dialogue is honestly hilarious. Just he like looks at the department store and sees some candy and he just goes yum. That's so simple but so funny.
I also love his like look of disbelief when the movie theater blows up. Because he's been in like the store grabbing candy, and he just comes out with like a handful of it. He's like, "Oh, what the heck happened?" I also love how you're like, "Yo, what's the easiest way to take out that many?" Because it has spawned so many at this point. Because Stripe like jumps in the water, and of course creates even more of them.
Right,
that spreads across the entire town. And I just love like they're like, "Hey, just blow them all up." in the movie theater,
it's like Glorious Bastard style.
Yeah. And I love that. I also love that they had to get permission to from Disney to show Snow White in the movie, I would imagine.
Right, yes.
So like I just wonder if they're like, hey, like this is what the movie is. Can we show some
Can
of
they
Snow
sing
White
hi
in it?
ho?
Yeah, and I'm guessing they're like, yo, if Spielberg's involved, we won't question what this movie is. I think if they were like really dived into it, they were like, yo, what do we lend our children's animated film too, but yeah, they also learn how to sing along to the song too. And I just love how she's like, what are they doing? They're like, they're watching Snow White. And they're singing.
Yeah,
and
wonderfully hilarious.
They're not up to anything dire at that point. They're just enjoying the movie. It shows that
I'm wondering, would Snow White have been, what do you call it when something enters like the public domain?
Oh, public domain. Oh, it probably could have been. So maybe they didn't even.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't even that.
It's from like 37 or something like that. It's old enough. I'm thinking maybe that could have been the case too. Just cheap to show. Maybe not.
No, that could very well be right. Because I was like, I can't imagine them being like, no, like why would you? We can't. You're not using our
screw you, Disney. Yeah.
And I also thought it was interesting too. Like, I always think Howie Mandel is such a big name now. I mean, he over time, he's on America's Got Talent and stuff now, and he's been a comedian for a really long time. Every time I hear that he did the voice of Gizmo, I'm always like, because there's not a lot there.
No,
I mean, but it's always interesting that I guess he put a lot of thought into how he would sound and the emotion behind how he would talk. But even though there's not like a ton of like, there's no like extensive dialogue. There's just like one or two like lines here and there where he just says something really cute and adorable. It's the same thing with all the Gremlins. Like they don't have like extensive lines of dialogue, but they actually got like actual voice actors to really kind of bring them to life, basically. Even though there isn't a ton of voice work to like, really go around.
Howie Mandel was only 29 or maybe 28, depending on when it was filmed. But when the movie came out, yeah, he wasn't. That's kind of interesting gig for him at that time because I don't know what else he was doing back then. I actually didn't even know who Howie Mandel was. I only know him from America's Got Talent, but pretty cool that he was the voice of Gizmo.
He's the voice of Gizmo. Frank Welker is the voice of Stripe, and Frank Welker is known for doing the voice of Fred Jones on part of the Scooby-Doo franchise.
Oh, cool.
He also voiced Baby Kermit on the original Muppet Babies. He's done a ton of voice work over time. 77 years old, still alive, still kicking it.
Nice.
And they said it was Welker who suggested Mandel perform in Gremlins. They said the puppets' lines were mostly invented by the voice actors based on cues from the physical actions of the puppets, which were filmed before the voice work. When developing the voice for Gizmo, Mandel explained Gizmo was cute and naive, so I got in touch with that. I couldn't envision going any other way or doing something different with it. And then other Gremlin voices were Michael Winslow and Peter Cullen. Peter Cullen also had done he's Optimus Prime, Transformers.
There we go. I knew that name.
But other voices were Bob Bergen, Fred Newman, Mark Dodson, Bob Holt, and Michael Sheehan. So there are a lot of people just contributed to those random Gremlins voices in the movie. It's just so weird to think because like when you think of voice acting, like there seems like there's just more involved, and there's not like extensive lines for any of them that they don't have like big lines of dialogue in it.
Right.
But in the case of Gizmo, even the few little lines, I guess gives him a little personality.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like when they do the whole thing with the camera with the light, and he just mentions it just says light. It's just a really like soft, like, yeah.
Even just his noises and mannerisms are adorable.
And then his little like freaking song or whatever their song, the little humming thing that he does. That's
oh, true, yeah. He literally sings.
He sings. Yeah, that's also actually use it on our story for Instagram because they actually have it on Instagram for some reason.
Oh, okay.
It's part of the soundtrack. But yeah, like, it's really interesting voice work, but it does a lot to bring them to life. And they all, I mean, to go along with how, like you said, the animatronics are just amazing. I think if they did make this today, they would try to use so much CGI.
Of course they would. Yeah, just easier that way. But
even though this looks 10 times better practical with animatronics.
100%. I don't know about you, but I think another thing that I love about this movie that adds to the charm is that I was a huge Goosebumps fan growing up, and this seems to me like something that was pulled right from that catalog of books and the series. Like it's such a childish yet also dark sort of story that fits like right in line with that series of books.
Dude, how long was Goosebumps around? Because I when I was a kid, Goosebumps, I collected those as a kid.
So did I. I still have them all at my parents' house.
And you and I are like far removed in age. So I was like, when is I didn't even know how long they went on.
They were still being published when I was a kid. It was granted they were like the new edition, so like some of the artwork was a little bit different, but I still have the entire original run of 62 books. I have every single one. I will never get rid of them. I love Goosebumps. Those were my first books.
My mom threw mine
out.
Oh,
that hurts.
That they were like, I was like, what the hell?
They're so iconic. I love
even
them
like
so much.
take up space and like anywhere in your life.
No, they're still in a chest down in my parents' basement. But this movie to me feels something that like R.L. Stine would have written, and even like the poster of it, the one that's on IMDb anyway, seems like right from that artwork.
I love that poster.
I love the alternate one, or I don't. It's the one that's on my DVD case of Gizmo and the shadows of the Gremlin. So cool.
Yeah.
And
that kind of goes like with kind of the ambiguity of the marketing, that poster that's on IMDb, because that doesn't really show you anything
it's
kind of like
tease.
Little terrorizing in it. It's just this little thing that's and what's like like the tagline, what's it say on it?
what you see isn't necessarily what you get, or something like that.
Yeah, and then the one on the original I guess they kind of insinuate on the original poster: cute, clever, mischievous, intelligent, dangerous.
Right.
But they don't show them looking gross. You just see little Mogwai hands coming out of a box.
Also, if you look at Gremlins, if you look at Gizmo's hands, he basically has like human fingers, but just 3 of them. I think it's so off-putting but hilarious. But
yeah.
For visual reference, that I think is such a clever like poster, and I love it so much. I have a little metal poster too of Gremlins too that I picked up at like a market sort of thing. It's really, really slick. It's different than the cover of the movie, but it's really cool.
Gremlins 2, the new batch, had 2 posters that were very much more direct. Like you saw like the actual Gremlin on the poster, so they kind of went all in on like, well, you already know what it is now, so we're not going to try to hide it at all. But yeah, I love you can't. I think it's hard to be that ambiguous with your marketing now. I mean, there's some movies that pull it off, but like I think like Cloverfield, they were able to like kind of hide what that was for a really long time, and I think more movies should really do that. I know it's a tough sell sometimes, like because some people are like, "Well, I don't know what that is, so I'm not going to see it." Or there's other groups of people who are like, "I'm intrigued by what that might be, so I'm going to go see it."
Right.
But I get it being a tougher sell and not being more direct, and then you also have to deal with like potential backlash if you're trying to
promote something and market it.
That's like, oh, this is kids movie, and they're like, oh no, it's not.
It's you might get in trouble these days, but
yeah,
I love that. I would have loved to have seen this at theaters. It would have been hilarious.
Oh god, the like level of complaining that you would hear of like today.
Definitely, it's definitely seems like something that we wouldn't get, obviously, because the visuals of the 80s and the sentiments and whatnot, but it just feels like this story feels like something we haven't seen in a long time.
Well, it's also the more graphic stuff happens to the Gremlins themselves, and not so much like there's not a lot of bloodletting with the humans at all. I mean, the grotesque stuff you're seeing is like it's the transformation stuff is when they end up getting hurt or killed. Stripe in particular has a pretty gruesome
that is
melt away death.
Awesome effects work right there. Honestly, it reminded me of that scene at the end of Child's Play.
Yeah. And then you get that one little Naz jump scare when he walks up to the fountain and he like kind of comes out all skeletal and
super cool.
And you know what? I think if that movie ended today, they probably would have been like they could have insinuated that maybe one of those things on its back was able to grow and like there's one left over.
Right.
They probably would have ended it on a sequel button.
Certainly.
This movie does not end things on a sequel button, surprisingly. Other than the fact that, like, hey, whenever you're ready, Mogwai will be waiting for you. I think it's so sad he takes him away. I mean, it wasn't.
I know.
I mean, I guess it was Billy's fault. Or we just blame Corey Feldman.
I suppose. Yeah, but then again, it's his responsibility.
And clearly, Gizmo likes Billy. He wants to say one thing to him before he leaves. And that's just
bye, Billy.
Billy. Yeah.
Like, it reminds me of like the narwhal and Elf.
Yeah.
It's like delivered just as cutely.
Yeah. But yeah, that kind of bothered me today. I was like, why can't you keep him?
I know. It was sad to me.
And Mr. Wing was like, I basically gave you rules and you didn't follow them, and look what happened. Like,
can't argue with the logic.
Didn't happen in your town though, Mr. Wing. Like, you were fine. And we took care of it. Now there's only one, and he's good.
Yeah.
So why are we even worried about it? What your thoughts? What was the thought process releasing this in June rather than closer to Christmas?
I
also came out the same weekend as Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Crazy.
Yes, that's pretty neat. I feel like they would be. I feel like that's
the Barbenheimer of their day.
Yeah, for certainly of like sci-fi sort of like monster movies. I think if anything, those would be like there'd be a. I think it's an interesting time to release both of those movies at the same time. I feel like they'd be vying for each other's audiences at the same time, and be curious to see which one did better. I know
they're both. Ghostbusters did better, but it wasn't. But the fact that Gremlins did as well as it did against Ghostbusters, I guess, is a testament of like during that time, it was probably easier for movies like this to coexist a little bit without kind of drowning each other out. They said on opening weekend that Gremlins had a 12.5 million opening weekend, and that was 1.1 million less than Ghostbusters in its opening weekend.
Oh,
that's
shit.
crazy.
Okay.
That was like
They both
12.5
were
million.
right
It's like,
up
whoa.
I have no
We
idea
have like
what the
90
logic
million
is. Yeah.
opening weekends now.
I guess
Yeah,
June,
I mean,
maybe people were at the beach back in
it does have
1984.
it does have like, I guess it does have a vibe of a summer like event movie, but like I don't know, it's so heavily, Christmas is so heavily like using it. Like I still thought it was weird that like it didn't even make it to Christmas. It like closed up shop on November 28th.
Theatrically, yeah. I'm thinking like if not releasing it at Christmas, what's the backup? And to me, October feels like a more natural release window than June. I don't see why June was picked. I don't know if it was like maybe there was some sort of like release schedule mix up. Like something had to be shuffled around and it fell on Gremlins to be the summer release. What was it? Warner Brothers movie, I think?
Let me see.
I guess I have I have it right here on the DVD.
Yeah, Warner Brothers, back when they were cool.
Yeah. Long time.
Back when they were cool.
But I don't know
Long time.
I would like to know though. I'm sure it's documented somewhere, but I couldn't tell you why. But I think this movie would have probably been enhanced seeing it in an environment like is depicted in the movie, like with some snow around you around the holidays. That's how I like to do it.
Definitely.
I'm not watching this movie in like May, but
not at all.
If you are, good for you. It just to me it resonates so much more as a holiday movie.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, and it's I was trying to figure if there was anything, and this one person just wrote, Netflix recommended Gremlins for me when I was searching for Christmas movies. Why?
Not what they had in mind.
We don't know anything about it. I mean, that would be it'd be off-putting. But I'm guessing if I had to guess, it does have the vibe of but Ghostbusters would be like another one that would seem like a better October one rather than
that too.
Summer.
That I didn't even think about that. That's even weirder, honest somehow.
That's crazy.
I googled what month or why was Gremlins released in June. There's no like concrete answer, but one of the more results questions that somebody else must have asked was, is Gremlins okay for a 7-year-old? And the answer is at least 10.
At least 10.
Yeah, and then that kitchen scene is mentioned as a reason
for being too scary for children.
Yeah, I think the microwave and blender kills in particular are a little bit gruesome for the younger audiences. I remember thinking, like, I guess the blood is green, but you very much can imagine what's going on.
But there's also the noise and the you're watching the feet spin. Like,
it is comical though.
That's so crazy that they were going to kill the mom, like cut off.
I know, and the manner in which they were going to do it too is
and kill a dog.
I wonder if that was also Joe Dante. I mean, Joe Dante earlier had done The Howling, which is a pretty graphic werewolf movie. So clearly he was somewhat of a horror guy. I'm sure that was his idea. Or, Chris Columbus wrote it. I wonder if that was maybe in one of the earlier drafts.
Oh, darker versions for him? Yeah. That's interesting. Speaking on the trailer for the movie, they said the trailer introduced the film to audiences by briefly explaining that Billy receives a strange creature as a Christmas present by going over the 3 rules and then coming out with the fact that the creatures transform into terrible monsters, but they did not show the monsters. The trailer showed very little of either Mogwai or the Gremlins. In contrast to this, other advertising concentrated on Gizmo at closer to the film's release and overlooked the Gremlins entirely. They wanted the film to look similar to Spielberg's earlier family film E.T. the Extraterrestrial. So that's what they were going for in the marketing, and use Gizmo as the focus of it.
I don't blame them for using Gizmo. He's a prime marketing tool. It feels like the 80s version of Baby Yoda. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like just designed to be marketed to kids.
And like us, many critics questioned the summer release date of the film in America, as the film takes place during a Christmas holiday season, causing them to comment that it should have had a Christmas release date instead. You know what? Also, I mean, this is also me spitballing. I think there'd be even more complaints if this came out during the Christmas.
Perhaps.
Because they probably would have been pushed even more as a family holiday movie. And that would have been an even bigger bait and switch.
Well, that's why I think October works, because it's still in the lead up to Christmas. You would have had that movie in theaters at Christmas time, although it had been released a few months earlier. So those that missed it could decide if they wanted to go see it at Christmas time, knowing a little bit more from word of mouth what the movie was really all about. And then it also fits in that like October release with like horror movies, because it is a horror comedy at heart.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there is a reason out there, but it's beyond me.
Yeah, we weren't Warner Brothers execs in 1984. I wasn't even born yet. Neither, and Jackson definitely wasn't.
No, definitely. No, you were still a few months out. That's right.
A few months out, yeah. And then they, yes, the complaints about the violence was particularly present in people who had brought their children to see the film, many of whom walked out the theater before the film had ended. Dante admitted to reporters that the idea of taking a 4-year-old to see Gremlins, thinking it's going to be a cuddly, funny animal movie, and then seeing that it turns into a horror picture, I think people were upset. They felt like they had been sold something family friendly, and it wasn't entirely family friendly.
You know what's funny is it's pretty late, like not late, but pretty well into the movie by the time any real violence or shady stuff occurs. So I feel like as a parent with a kid at that theater, you probably made it 40 minutes into that movie before anything too suspect happens.
Because even like I think even once you see Gizmo get wet and they multiply, they look like him. They look meaner than him, but they still look like him.
Right.
So
not
that's still
yank
fine.
Your kid out yet.
That's still fine. Yeah, you're right. You're deep into it.
You're invested at that time. Do you upset your child by yanking them out of the theater, or do you risk what's going to be shown afterwards?
Yeah, it takes a turn too late, and you're like, I guess you have to gauge how your like kid responds to it. If your kid's like into it, you're like, all right, well, cool. And if it starts crying, then
then maybe.
You know, I think that is why it's probably good that Spielberg was very adamant that they didn't transform Gizmo, because at least like if you are a kid and like this is that certain parts of it that are scary, you still have this like other cute thing this ends up being heroic in the end too, and they're like, oh, like. I'm sure that everyone wanted some kind of Gizmo doll when they were a kid, when this movie came out. I imagine the merchandising on this movie was insane. At least for Gizmo, I don't know if you want like a Stripe action figure, but
the weird kid down the street probably had a Stripe.
Stripe, yeah. But I think you definitely want like a Gizmo like doll or something when you.
I'd be curious to see in an alternate timeline how the Furbies would have sold if Gizmo had it turned into Stripe. I doubt many kids would want one of those in their bedroom at night. Actually, in general, I wouldn't want a Furby in my room at night. They're creepy looking too.
They have like
big eyes.
They have real clicky eyes too. Like they're like
they are so strange.
The things that are made for kids, past me being one, I'm just like I don't get it.
Why is that?
I never understood that. I never understood like
dolls.
I don't know if you are Gigapets. I don't know if you know what like Gigapets were, but like there's this little
I know of them, but I can't remember what they look like.
Like it was just a little like almost like little like machine, almost like a video game almost, and you were taking care of this like pet that you played. You had to wake up and feed it, and all that stuff. And you were basically taught. It was supposed to teach kids how to like take care of something like on a schedule and all that. So it would, if you didn't feed it, it would like die in the middle of the night, and like you would wake up to like. Of course, it's just a video, but it's a video screen. But like, it's still like your Gigapet would be dead, and like,
so we had,
some people believed in that lesson of being taught that early, and other people were like, "That's kind of a dark lesson to learn when you're."
Well, you got to learn it somewhere. So we had a similar thing. I think Gigapets were probably still around, but the popular version when I was growing up were called Tamagotchis. Everyone had one of those.
So I could never tell if one came first and one was a knockoff, if they were just like, because they were this. I remember that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Gigapets were first. If I were to,
I'm just like, that's disturbing. So like, if I happen to like knock out before feeding this fake thing and it dies, like
it died of starvation.
I'm a bad parent. Apparently,
important lesson to learn.
But yeah, I would have, if I was like old, like young enough. Like when the movie came out, when Gremlins came out, I would have wanted a Gizmo. Like
if I was like, I would have wanted a Gizmo. I would have slept with a Gizmo.
5 or 6. Yeah, for sure.
He's cute, cuddly.
Yep. Yeah, and heroic.
And it would protect you.
He has a really fun heroic scene in the second one that is like a play on Rambo. That's like actually really funny.
Okay, I gotta see this. Like, it actually
Yeah.
sounds
You know
worthwhile.
what? I'm gonna drop. You know what? I'm gonna drop box you a bunch of stuff tonight. Just be like, yo, watch at your
Please.
leisure.
Is
Whatever.
Gremlins 2 at all take place around Christmas, or is it completely different?
No, it's like it's an LA movie through and through.
Oh.
Because it deals with like the industry and all that stuff. It's really funny. I
Okay.
mean, like if you're going into it thinking it's gonna be like this, you might be a little disappointed. But like once
I'm
you
glad to know that now.
yeah, once you go into it knowing that it's kind of like it's a lot more satire and like stuff like that.
Okay.
And kind of toys with different aspects of the industry. Like it works on that level once you accept it for what it is. I think that's why over time it's grown into like a cult favorite. But it definitely didn't make as much money because I think people were expecting this, and like a lot of people that review it now say it was ahead of its time.
Oh, okay. That's usually a good thing to say about a movie. I see Chris Columbus also co-wrote. Joe Dante came back to direct. That's great. Looks like he co-directed.
They got the principal cast, or at least the two leads.
Dude, Christopher Lee is in this movie, and his name is Dr. Catheter.
Yep.
What? Okay,
Yep.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it really kind of makes fun of the industry and stuff too. And yeah, it's fun.
I love movies about the industry, especially satirical ones. So
yeah,
sign me up. I'd watch the hell out of Gremlins too. That's great.
But it is different. Just so you'll go in knowing that, but it's definitely funny though. And the Gremlins have like a ton of different personalities. Like some of them make fun of like you'll kind of notice like just Hollywood stuff they make fun of.
Okay.
Like, and with some of them like pretty on the nose. But yeah, they really went all out on just making them giving them more personality and not I guess once you kind of know the universe, you can just kind of toy around with things a bit more.
Right.
And I kind of wish I do wish people accepted it more when it came out because there's that I know like there was initial disappointment from when they made it and it wasn't as well received. It's interesting when directors say like they like will make a movie, it doesn't do well, and they're like, oh well, that was that, and then they find out years later that like it's found this new life, and they're like, oh wow, like I kind of let it go, like back in 1990, and now it's this like brand new thing again, which is pretty cool though. I really enjoyed it. I think
I'm just realizing now that this movie's gonna be 40 next year.
Yeah,
Jesus, that's insane.
Gross.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like just thinking of like how well it's aged, I think is like pretty tremendous too. How great it looks still.
Yeah.
Is quite impressive.
Yeah,
like this movie doesn't look like that at all.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because it is. I mean, it does feel distinctly 80s, right, of its time. But then, the effects and everything feel very much ahead of its time, and like it, and the fact that they all feel very realistic. And I mean, like, I wish more people looked at movies like this and The Thing, Child's Play, anything that use like practical effects, and be like, yo, this looks so much better than.
Use those as an example. Yeah. You don't date yourself as much with practical effects than you do with CGI. You really are limiting yourself to the time period that you're depicting or that your movie's made in. I feel like when you're using visual effects, like or like computer generated ones, obviously you can tell, it's an 80s movie, but just looks so much better. But no, I completely agree.
And just a testament of how big 84 was. This was the fourth highest grossing film of 1984 behind Beverly Hills Cop, Ghostbusters, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. God, we're talking about 1999. I think 84 was a pretty good year for movies, man.
While we're on the topic of it, I was going to mention it or throw this at you earlier, and I don't know if this has come up before, but while we were talking about this is the same year that the PG-13 rating was established, and I was curious if you knew what the first PG-13 rated movie was.
I don't. Do you have it?
Oh, yeah. It was the first. The original Red Dawn was the first movie to have the PG-13
Oh, really?
rating.
That's a fun movie. That's a fun movie.
Yeah, I've never seen. I actually like the remake, but then again, I haven't seen the first one, so I don't know how they stack up. I'm gonna guess probably poorly, but we should bookmark that to cover for.
Yeah, that'd be cool because I saw the remake when it came out. I don't remember hating it, but is it bad? So I don't remember much from it. But I just remember Chris Hemsworth's in it. There's that.
That's right. Like a pre-Thor or just after Thor. I think it was 2012.
And I know the original Patrick Swayze and
yes,
Jennifer Beals is also in it. They did not get along while filming that movie at all, and
they did Dirty Dancing, right?
And they didn't get along a lot initially in the beginning. I guess by the end of it, they were fine. I just love all these like, especially something like Dirty Dancing, where these like there's this chemistry, and you're supposed to be sold on that, and then to find out that they hated each other. It was like that with The Notebook, like Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling didn't get along.
No, don't tell me that. Don't ruin that.
Well, they ended up dating afterwards. So it turned into something.
I didn't know that they didn't get along because their chemistry feels so natural. I love The Notebook.
So I think the issue was he's a little bit more loose filming wise, and she was more serious. And so they got into a lot of conflicts about that. And then Nick Cassavetes, who directed it, was kind of just always like playing mediator. But then he was like, well, whatever this is, it's creating something. There's spark.
Right.
For sure. I almost broke your heart. I didn't know. Were you a big fan of The Notebook?
I love The Notebook, honestly. Like, I think that is a fantastic drama. Call it what you want. I have a feeling you must like it too.
No, it's good. I've only liked 2 movies based on Nicholas Sparks books. It's
What's
that
the other
one?
one?
And A Walk to Remember, I think, is really good too.
I haven't really seen a lot of his adaptations.
Came out a couple years, maybe 2 or 3 years before The Notebook. Mandy Moore's in it, and Shane West. It's actually
that's the one where she has like an illness as a high school.
She has leukemia. And
right.
She's like uber Christian. He's like bad boy.
Right.
And then and then they fall in love, and then she's like, I'm dying. And like,
God, he could write a teen romance movie or novel. That Nicholas Sparks.
I saw that movie. This is like, God, when did it come out? Did it come out in 2003? It might have been either right after high school when it came out, but I saw it with a girl I was seeing at the time, and it gets like halfway through it, and like she's into it, but then she looks at me and she's like, "Are you crying?" I'm like, "No." I'm not crying.
My
like
eyes are
legit,
sweating.
like legit teared up. I was like, "No, I don't know. I'm tired. I'm just really tired."
His movies have that impact. I'm one of those people that, like, honestly, I don't find the ending of The Notebook sad. I find it like wholesome. Like, that's the ending I want for these characters. But everyone I know is like so devastated.
I can see why it's sad, but I also get what you're saying. Because
I'm like, what better way for them to go out? That is exactly what they wanted.
They end up together. Like,
yes, that is a happy ending.
I love. Sorry about that segue from Gremlins. Hard turn from Gremlins.
Hard turn.
Speaking of critical responses, Roger Ebert liked the movie. He gave it 3 out of 4 stars, and he declared it to not only be fun, but also a sly series of send-ups, effectively parodying many elemental film storylines. In his opinion, Gremlins did this partly through depictions of mysterious worlds, the shop in Chinatown, and a tyrannical elderly woman, Mrs. Deagle. Ebert also believed the rule in which a mogwai cannot eat after midnight was inspired by fairy tales, and that the final scenes parody classic horror films. He connected Kate's speech about her father with the great tradition of 1950s sick jokes. Gene Siskel, his partner in crime, liked it even more, gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars, called it wickedly funny and a slightly sick ride, and a most original work. We're aware at every moment that someone is trying to entertain us. Playfulness abounds. Leonard Maltin disapproved of the film, and his view was made clear in remarks he made on the television show Entertainment Tonight. He called the film icky and gross. Well, it's not clean. He later wrote that despite being set in a picture postcard town and blending the feel of It's a Wonderful Life, a clip of which appears in Gremlins, with that of The Blob, the film is negated by too vivid violence and mayhem, giving the film 2 out of 4 stars. Oddly enough, Maltin later made a cameo appearance in Gremlins 2: The New Batch, repeating his criticisms of the original film as an in-joke before being throttled by the creatures. He later gave the second film a more positive rating, 3 out of 4 stars.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see where this parody is coming into play. That is hilarious. Yes, please Dropbox me that.
A lot of critics don't understand Kate's speech. They think it's out of place. And
interesting. I've never, maybe I'm biased because I remembered it from my childhood and it's always stuck with me, but I never felt it that way.
There are people that think of these deeper meanings. Scholar Charlotte Miller interpreted all of these things: the death scenes, Kate's speech, and Gremlin's gluttony, as a satire of some characteristics of Western civilization, suggesting that Westerners may take too much satisfaction from violence. Gremlins can also be interpreted as a statement against technology, in that some characters, such as Billy's father, are overly dependent on it. In contrast, Mr. Wing is shown to have a strong distaste for television. Kirkpatrick Sale also interpreted Gremlins as an anti-technology film in his book Rebels Against the Future. Another scholar suggested that the film is meant to express a number of observations of society by having the gremlin characters shift in what they are meant to represent. At different times, they are depicted as teenagers, the wealthy establishment, or fans of Disney films.
Okay.
Another scholar drew a connection between the microwave scene and urban legends about pets dying in microwave ovens. He described the portrayal of this urban legend in the film as successful, but that meant it seemed terrible. This is indeed a scene that is thought of as being one of the film's most violent depictions, with even Roger Ebert expressing some fear in his review that the film might encourage children to try to microwave their pets.
Okay, Roger, let's not get carried away here. I doubt that ever happened, but in keeping with that, I think if there's any, like, if I were to get a little bit like academic on what I think some of the some themes or what is kind of being said with this movie, I've always found that there's, and I've not really gone too far into this, but I've always thought there was a theme or a relation with like Westerners' curiosity about like foreign mythology and like Gizmo coming from like a Chinese man's shop and sort of not being taken seriously and sort of being viewed as whimsical and not taken very seriously. I've always thought there was cool implications that are mirrored in real life with that sort of theme too, that I've always admired too. And then of course everything's nice and fixed and neatly bow wrapped by the end of it, but rarely is that usually the case. But
yeah, I can see that. I also think it's really interesting that the things that they indulge in once they turn evil are, they drink, they smoke, they want to fire off guns, and it's just, and they get super, they get destructive.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I guess it's trying to, you could say that it's trying to show you like what can happen when like, there's all your kind of inhibitions are allowed to like kind of run wild. I guess
that's a great point.
And bringing out the worst, and these scenes can bring out the worst in you, I guess.
Right.
I mean, it's so interesting to think that I don't know if so many people think this deeply about Gremlins, but there could
perhaps
be,
they should.
But there could be some stuff in there that
like any all art, like it any viewer can extrapolate whatever they see in a movie or a painting or whatever have you, whatever's in front of you. So there's no right or wrong answer. It is what you interpret it to be, and which is the beauty of it. Whether there's an objective meaning behind these things is another story. But I always like to envision, with at least in the case with most movies, that the artists, whether it be the writer, the director, or both, are at least drawing on stuff that they know or that they're conceptualizing in their mind. So I feel like most of what we see is inspired by something, but the beauty is that you get to interpret that to be whatever you like most times. But yeah.
I also, I guess in the simplest terms, it also can like kind of teach you, like, if you're a younger viewer watching this, just how to just be responsible with taking care of any kind of like pet whatsoever.
Absolutely.
I mean, like you're giving any kind of rule about taking care of anything, like what you should and shouldn't do in order to properly take care of something or someone. And I don't think Billy, like, he doesn't do anything outwardly that would like, he would be careful on his own. I think when he has like the Corey Feldman character over here, like that whoops happens, but I don't think if Billy is left to his own devices that happens. I think Billy was, even though it's kind of set up that he's not totally responsible, he does bring the dog to work, but he has his reasons for doing that. But I think it just shows the consequence of like, hey, if you don't follow these rules, then this is a very, of course, over exaggerated situation happening here. But
yes,
bad things can happen, is what we're trying to say, and bad things do indeed happen here. But man, dude, when I was watching today, I was like, there is no bone. There's like no other meat to this story other than this. This is
No,
what it is.
exactly. And
Like-
it's sort of nice to have a break from all these other thematic implications. Like it's nice to just turn your brain off and not have to think too deeply beyond what you're actually seeing and marvel in its ridiculousness. And that's what I love about this movie.
It's like, what do they want? They just want to fuck shit up.
Yeah, exactly.
that seems to be their goal, their end game, and that's completely it.
And it's up to one kid to stop it all. And what more quintessentially 80s concept can you come up with?
Kid and his would-be girlfriend / sidekick.
Yeah.
She gets to, and of course, this is like a movie where most of the adults are kind of useless. So it's up to like the younger people to save the day. That was like a lot that they use that a lot in 80s movies. Where
very much so. I think that's what makes that decade so awesome in film.
Yeah. And it kind of proves like, sometimes you gotta listen to your kids. they know what's up.
Yeah.
And I guess, and they say whatever mixed criticism the movie received in '84 has continued to receive critical praise over the years, and is considered by many as one of the best films of 1984, and has an 86% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, as well.
What is your critical assessment? How do you rate, or
what
score do you give?
Well, I think from now on, I'm gonna, just because we both letterbox now, I'm gonna change them to just the letterbox score.
Okay, yeah.
Or when we do this,
that's good. Yeah, let's do that.
I gave it a 4. I think that's a pretty good score.
I mean, I agree. I'll be giving it. I haven't ranked it yet because I just finished up before we recorded, but I will also be giving it a 4. I want to give it, like, my enjoyment of it is a 5. I really don't. I don't like about it, but like just matching it in terms of its filmmaking quality, I think it's still high. So
yeah,
I agree. 4 out of 5 for me as well, which is definitely a recommendation. I would definitely encourage people that haven't seen it, that are looking to get into something a little bit more old school around Christmas time. Check out Gremlins. You won't be disappointed. It is literally hilarious. I think it's funnier than it really was intended to be. At least I look at it that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any
fan of Spielberg should love it too.
And I just came across the thing about the Furby. The Furby was inspired by Gizmo.
Oh, okay. That makes total sense.
Because I was looking at the merchandising. They were heavily inspired by the character of Gizmo when they created Furby.
Nice. Okay.
And they also credit, at least in the 80s, Steven Spielberg with this growing trend of merchandising cute characters for profit, pointing to E.T. the Extraterrestrial and Gremlins.
I don't know how E.T. can be considered cute, but
so this is a big debate amongst my friends, because I used to love. I still love E.T., but I used to love it a lot more a long time ago. It used to be like, it was once in my top 10 like movies of all time, and I was like, I don't think E.T. is grotesque, but some of my friends were like, "There's nothing cute about that thing at all, dude." I was like, really? And they all point to the scene where E.T. is dying. I was like, of course, that's scary.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think he looks like a scary looking thing at all.
He looks to me like an elephant penis. Like that's just what I think. Look at him and then look at like an elephant skin and tell me he doesn't look like an elephant's appendage. Like he is a weird looking. I think it's like a weird cute, like a French bulldog or a pug. But cute, I don't know. But definitely, if it's coming down to ET or Gizmo, I'm going Gizmo. But
I'm never gonna be able to watch ET.
Just think about that next time you see it.
Giant elephant penis. And as far as the film's legacy, we already said it spawned the sequel. But they said it also was believed to be the inspiration for films such as Ghoulies, Troll, Hobgoblins, and Munchies. I've seen Ghoulies because I remember the cover art, but like I don't know the other.
Well, Trolls,
and those are all straight horror movies too.
Okay.
In music, the Scottish rock post-rock band Mogwai are named after the film's creatures. As for the reason why the band chose this as their name, their guitarist has stated that it has no significant meaning, and we always intended on getting a better one, but like a lot of other things, we never got around to it. to doing anything else.
Okay. Speaking of the music, Jerry Goldsmith's score, I think, is too.
So that main Gremlins theme is actually very, very good, and like,
that's iconic.
Yeah, it's and I also love that, even though it doesn't make much sense because I don't know how they're hearing the music, you actually hear the Gremlins kind of humming along to it sometimes when the music's playing.
If we could open the episode with the Gremlins theme, that would be awesome.
You know what? Yeah, you know what? So sometimes I add like the trailers, TV spots ahead of the episodes. I think I just might add the
please do that
theme for
instead
of
it's
the
so
TV
awesome.
spot. That's hilarious. Yeah. Because another thing, I was like, how do they know? Do they hear the movie music? Like,
don't ask questions. It's an 80s movie.
Doesn't make any sense.
It's awesome that way.
In 2019, Warner Brothers successfully gained registered trademark of the name and the franchise. That same year, the studio's parent company, Warner Media, greenlit an animated series called Gremlins: Secrets of the Mogwai, based on the property of its streaming service, Max, that premiered on May 23rd, 2023. There is also a lot of talk of there being a third film. Zach Galligan is down to do it. Well, like, of course. I don't know if he's up to anything else. I don't know if I want a third movie. I agree with you. If you make a third one or if you remake it, the only thing I can accept you like hard R it. and make it like a true horror movie.
It could be fun. I just feel like it would be more than likely end up being shit, but I don't know. It feels like something that just belongs in the 80s / early 90s. But maybe with the right vision.
It feels very much of a product of its time. Like even though it's weird because we said that a lot of it feels like not dated, at least the way the effects and stuff look. But there is
concept.
Like I think that you pointing that out earlier that if Steven Spielberg's his handprints are all over it, and there's something about what he brought to even something that he produced back then. You could tell it was a part of his, like he had some kind of input in it.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting that Steven Spielberg has these kind of like, I can't even want to say dark. You can't even call Steven Spielberg dark, but like
this is the guy that did Schindler's List.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's pretty dark. Yeah. But he can do, yeah, that's true. But he can do like, he wants like these concepts with like Gremlins and then Poltergeist. I think he likes to dabble with like I have an idea, but like I'll let someone else do it. But like
it's his brand at the end of the day, right? Like you don't want to. But I think he likes to at least be involved, even on the outside of some of these things.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it is a Christmas classic, an unconventional one.
Yes.
I will. You know what we should do with our letterbox before Christmas, if you can.
Yeah.
Even if you want, it doesn't have to be 10. Like, what if you can think of like any unconventional, like if you wanted to rank an unconventional Christmas movies, then probably could do some of that. I guess I have a few.
Good thinking.
Like there's some that there's this movie called Go that came out in 1999. It takes place during Christmas and it has very little to do with Christmas, but I watch it every time around the year because it opens with lines about Christmas. It takes place like on Christmas and ends up into like New Year's. So but Christmas has nothing to do with the plot whatsoever.
My only issue would be that I've seen so few even unconventional Christmas movies. It'd be hard for me to stack them, like to rate them accordingly, but it's a good idea. And I would definitely make a list of ones that I just know of, but in terms of the ones I've actually seen, they are very few because again, not a Christmas movie guy.
I forgot about what I think I want to try. If we can make it work, I will try to sneak in Black Christmas.
I think we should cover it. I think that'd be great. And I kind of wanted to get around to it for October anyway. So if we can sneak it in for Christmas, then boom.
I think that would work because like we were talking about doing possibly 4, and like that would give us the 4th one.
True. Why not?
And because it's either that or is it gonna be something really cheesy and silly? I was gonna make you watch like a Family Stone or
Let's
Holiday.
do Black Christmas. Fantastic. It's locked.
It's locked and loaded. All my girlfriends that listen to this and they're like, why doesn't he like Love Actually? Why doesn't he like The Holiday?
Like The Holiday I haven't seen, but it just doesn't appeal to me.
It's okay to like it if you're a dude. I was like, I
have nothing. Yeah, definitely.
What I've learned is that I don't think his issues with Love Actually have anything to do with the fact that like he's a guy and doesn't like it. It's
certainly not.
He has a very similar reaction to that movie that some of my other friends have to it. It's a very visceral disdain for it.
Yeah.
Even though it comes from this really wholesome, nice place, that movie. A lot of my friends think that no, it actually comes from a very nasty, messed up place, and you guys all think it's very sweet and has something nice to say.
Perhaps. I maintain that anybody can like anything, and I have my particular sense of taste with things, or what I am inclined to like. And for whatever reason, I don't know, I was raised in a household that Christmas was cherished. My mother loves Christmas, and I watched Christmas movies with her growing up, mostly animated ones, like Polar Express was a staple in our house. But for whatever reason, I don't know, I somewhere growing up skewed towards more like dark horror dramas, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Christmas was left, cast by the wayside.
And those movies are very much anti that.
Yeah.
they're all like,
that's right. I don't know what it is.
Sunshine and roses and bows.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Which, I think there's a place for it, of course. I mean,
absolutely.
Some people want to go to the movies to feel good, and that those movies usually make you feel good. But I do understand the whole point of it being so sweet. Like, it's so like no one acts like that in real life is what some people would say.
Right. And sometimes that's kind of how I like my movies to be, or to emulate real life. Not always. That being said, I am really excited to cover Home Alone this year, which is much more of a conventional, heartwarming Christmas movie made by one of the greatest directors in John Hughes. So,
and perfect timing for us to do it. I thought it was so cool that Macaulay Culkin got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, like to kind of kick off Christmas. Because it's like he is, for a lot of people in the best Christmas. I mean, everyone has their favorite, but that is on a lot of people's list as their favorite Christmas movie. Is Home Alone, so that was nice to see him get that. And anyway, I think also most of us can agree, if you're a guy and you've seen Love Actually, that a girl probably made you watch it first. so that
I'm sure that is the case for many.
That happened with me.
That's the case with me as well. Yes,
because I avoided it like the plague, because I was like, I don't think that looks. Even though that one scene I told you about offline, I was like, oh, that looks sweet. And then when I saw the movie, I was like, that's not sweet. That's a shady thing to do. Yeah. That's your best friend's wife. Right. But yeah, a girl definitely made me watch it, and I ended up liking it. But of course, that everyone's not going to like everything.
That's right.
But I totally, and I do love that it feels like it's like almost like in a funny way, your desire to send me like disparaging things about Love Actually, like
I knew that you would get a kick out of that article.
Yeah, no, because like that article is meant to be kind of positive, but it's also like, it's also ridiculous, guys. Like,
exactly.
I respected the honesty. So
yeah, it was something to engage in together that was Love Actually related. So I knew you'd appreciate it.
Yeah, it was pretty. Yeah, that was funny.
At least we got common
both
ground
agree on
with
this
Gremlins.
one.
Yeah, exactly.
We got common ground on Gremlins. And honestly, I think it stands the test of time. I feel like my little brother likes this movie too. Yeah, he's
nice.
Your age, I guess. But he really likes it, and he thought it was really good. He hasn't seen the second one either, though. Maybe I should show it to him. As well.
I really want to watch the second one.
yeah, it's really good. And yeah, I think it's a really good unconventional Christmas movie. But I still think it still has the heart of, like, even though there's like all this horror and mayhem, by the end of it, because it ends so nice, it's very sweet, and they save the day. There's a lot of destruction, but they save the day.
Very Spielberg-esque. Yeah.
And I love how it ends on that kind of like picturesque like view of the town or whatever, which looks very Christmassy. And then of course that music is just so like not Christmassy, the main theme.
Yeah.
That it ends on. But yeah, no, I loved it, and it will probably continue to be on my yearly Christmas watch.
I'm already looking forward to that watch of this movie
for years to come. So yeah, that concludes this entry of Merry Bingemas. We at least have 2 more for you.
That's right.
We're gonna make Black Christmas happen, because I really want that'll be a fun one to talk about, to see if you like it. I got a lot to Dropbox you today, so
yes, please do. We'll do that.
Fire those off, and we can make that work in the schedule. I think it'd be just to see what you felt about it, like the first time, like watching it.
Yeah,
because that was a movie that I searched for. I couldn't find it, like when I was younger. Always heard about it and couldn't find it, and I ended up paying like a lot of money for a janky DVD, but that was like nothing. They didn't really like have it.
Sometimes, you can't pass up these things when you see them. Like when I saw my copy of Skinamarink, I was like, I don't know when I'm going to come across that again. I'm snagging that, and I paid a pretty penny for it too. So respect.
Yeah, I went from expensive janky DVD to having one copy on Blu-ray and another copy on 4K. So they're very easy to find now.
Yes, I know. I need to get my copy too.
But it was that horror movie back in the day. It was like, oh, I've heard people talk about it. I want to see it, and I saw it at an age where it did scare me a little bit. It's definitely got some moments for sure.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it, and the rest of Merry Bingemas too. And we got another anniversary coming up next week that I'm really excited to chat about too with Christine. So stay tuned to that. I just watched that in October, but I'm already like antsy to talk about it again. So
that'll be fun.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, you got Christine and the faculty. We got a lot going on.
Yes, yeah, there's gonna be a lot
we're cramming this into a very short amount of time, but at least they're fun ones. So like we're really excited to do them.
Definitely
get them out to you guys.
Yeah.
All right, wrap it up.
Well, I guess yes. Without any further ado, that wraps up what is technically our second episode of Merry Bingemas. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining us on our second episode of this holiday themed miniseries. Glad to have you guys back for another episode. And as we mentioned, stay tuned. We got plenty of other Christmas movies lined up for the remainder of the month as we celebrate the Christmas holiday. Looking forward to chatting with you guys next week. Gaius, as always, thanks for joining and thanks for having me on to talk about movies. And for those that are just joining and want to find us on other platforms, anywhere you type in at Back to the Blockbuster, you can find us on social media and where you guys get your podcasts. Tell your friends that like this sort of content. And please join us next week where we break down a couple other Christmas movies. Thanks again for joining us, guys.